and welcome to tonight's webinar. Tonight we are going to be looking at a different topic than we normally cover off during our webinars. Rather than transition or career building, we're actually going to be looking at how to build a military network. And I'm really pleased to be joined tonight by the team from Two Roses in Yorkshire and beyond, of course. So I'd just like to introduce myself. I'm Pete Little. I'm part of our business development team at the Officers Association, looking after the north of England. My background is 20 years experience within commercial and recruitment roles, and that's been globally, although mainly in markets such as Germany, Turkey, Poland, Russia. We've got some guys who've been running a fantastic network joining us tonight. So this really is an opportunity to ask all those kind of practical questions about how to set up and grow a network within an area that you might be having to look at. So tonight's webinar, as I said, it's a bit of a different one for us. This is all about how to start and build that military network. Of course, the Officers Association, anyone who's worked with us in the past or come along to any of our events, you'll be well aware of the fact that we're very active encouraging people to use their network as part of their transition, as part of their job hunting activities. And many of you may be thinking, well, how do we get involved with networks? And maybe should I even set up my own network if I haven't got one locally? So tonight's all about how you go about doing that. So I'm really pleased to be able to introduce the two guys from Two Roses. And if I could start off by introducing Alex Nancolas. Good evening, Alex.
Oh, good evening. Hi. Thanks very much for inviting John and I along this evening. So just really a quick bit about me without stealing too much of John's thunder. I left the regular army in December 2013. And after 9 years in the Yorkshire Regiment, I reached the dizzy heights of sort of senior captain. And then left for a short period of time, and then ended up rejoining the Yorkshire Regiment as well, and became a reservist. But when I originally left the army, I went on to the Tour de France delivery team for 2014, and that was really chimes into the beginning of Two Roses, working with John, and then sort of progressed on through my career. And since 2015, I've been working for FDM Group, actually placed at Drax Group, the large sort of power company based up in Yorkshire in IT project and program management. But I'll just hang fire on the full roots of Two Roses and let John introduce himself as well.
Thanks, Alex. And here's John. Good evening, John.
Good evening, Pete. Thanks very much indeed again for giving us the opportunity to have this session tonight. Same with Alex, I'm 18 years with the Duke of Wellington's Regiment, and having left in 2006, I became a country estate general manager. Unfortunately, I got made redundant in the credit crunch from that, and having had quite a rough time immediately after, I took the opportunity to go back into the military, and I was on full-time reserve service for 5 years. And that actually was very useful for building a network. I was SO2 transition, assisting people leaving, and also built a substantive network in Yorkshire and then down in the Nottingham area as well, before getting the opportunity, again through networking, to join NHS Digital, which I did in January 16. And my current role there is the Chief Planner, Programme Manager. And it's been a really interesting and entertaining ride building this network with Alex and with Pete. And at which point I'll hand back to Alex to start the ball rolling.
Well, thanks for that, John. Alex, if we'll just start off with a quick poll question. So tonight we're just doing one poll question, but it'd be really useful to the guys presenting tonight, just to, of those who are on the call this evening, just to give us a feel of where you are in the stage of actually building your military network. So we're just running the one poll question tonight, and I'll fire that up now. It'd be really interesting to get your views, your status essentially of where you are. So for building a military network, is it still an ambition for you? Are you in contact with others and thinking about getting it going? How'd your first meeting? Had some regular meetings, are now looking to expand, or have you completed all the above and just looking at different options in there? So we'll just let the votes come through. and see what it goes from there, and it will give the guys a good steer of where everyone is in the audience. So give that a couple more seconds, and we'll see what that comes through as. So we'll close that off, and we will share that, and it's pretty unanimous, and going through to the general election kind of style of voting. 100% of the audience still consider building a military network still on ambition, so very early days for everyone. So I hope that's useful for you guys. And I think there's a lot out there who are thinking about getting this started. So let me close that off, and then I'll hand you over to Alex, who can take you through the next session.
Okay, so for me, Two Roses really began out of me beginning to leave the army in around July 2013, and I went down to see the Officers Association in London, and I had this great bit of advice of go networking, and I asked where's the best place to go, and the main thing seemed London. I wanted to get a job in Leeds, so obviously a 2-hour plus train journey, God knows how many hundreds of miles difference between where there was some good military networks versus where there were none. So that was the initial requirement that I came up with, and then I went over to see somebody else called Dave Hilton, who works for the RFEA, who was willing to put me in contact with a few other people. That then raised John's name, saying that he was somebody else looking to start a network. And we then went on and had a telephone call, discussed the idea that there was an absence of business networking, and we had an idea. Now, you can see the vision at the bottom of the slide, which is quite ambitious in many respects. When you say continuously develop a former armed forces network in the north of England, read north of England, really John and I have only really got going around Leeds and the immediate Yorkshire area, and there's some definite lessons learned there. Uniqueness of service qualities, yes, that definitely does stuff. Enhanced business-to-business contacts, yeah, we're getting there. Opportunities, yes, we're getting there. And mentoring service leaders, we've definitely started doing. But this is something that's definitely evolving. I mean, we're entering into in October time, it'll be our 4th year. So that thing is, don't be scared by what you think you're about to launch into. Have a broad sort of vision to go there. And as John puts that on that bullet, be honest with yourself. What are you looking to achieve? And I think John will speak later on about the importance of really understanding what you want to get out of your group. And be clear what it's not. And we'll go more into that shortly later on. But yeah, if you're there to do business networking, make sure the majority of your session is actually focused on that, and make sure you've got the guys along that are going to do that. Now, initially, it's quite difficult when you're cobbling together guys. Now, a few you know, a few you may not. But it's that drawing together of your network. And the thing that always strikes me is that every service leader is told to go network, but if you just have your own individual networks, they're not as effective as if a collection of you come together and put all these different networks together. And a bit like football card swapping, you can pretty quickly solve all your problems collectively. And as that network starts to expand, it becomes more and more powerful. So I think that's where I'll finish off, and I'll let John now continue.
Well, I would add to that, when I'm saying be honest with yourselves, I get a lot of satisfaction out of helping service leavers, and main reason for that is because of the tough time that I've had at a certain period in my life. I know what it's like, and therefore that's a lot of why I do this. And it's worked for me. When I say be clear what it is not, this is not a reunion. And sometimes you'll get people who just want to come along and talk about OTXs and OPTORs that you've had with them, and you've actually got to be quite firm with them and say, we can do that in the pub afterwards, but actually you need to get around and speak to people and meet the people you don't know, not talk to me about yesteryear. It is also not a place for people to come to expecting to be given a job. And we've had a couple of occasions where people have just got completely the wrong end of the stick and have, for some reason, made the assumption that Alex and I are here to get them a job. It isn't that. And sometimes you have to be quite direct, and these individuals you have to accept can be a bit trying, but that's part of, they are the people that need the help. You just need to give them the direction of where to find the assistance that they're looking for, but it shouldn't be you getting them a job directly. So that's why I'm saying be clear to yourselves and be clear to your people attending what your organisation is not.
And just thinking about that, the vision's actually listed or displayed on the Two Raises page there very clearly for everyone to understand what it's all about, isn't it? So that it guides those who are joining the group. So if we just move then on to the next slide there, all about location.
Yeah. Okay, that one's me. I know it's a statement of the obvious, but Leeds is ideal for this. It's excellent rail and road connections, and all our meeting locations are within easy walking distance, 5-10 minutes walking distance of the railway station. And because it's on the main line, it's easy to get to. You need to consider that, because when people have had a hard day at work, anything that is going to add to their hassle of them attending is just one more thing for them, or one more reason for them not to attend. Maybe not for the first time, because they may be there for the sole intention of networking to hopefully get that job that they're looking for through the network. But for your hardcore, and you do need that small hardcore, for them to keep coming back to provide that centre of mass. Again, if the weather's foul, or it's they've had, the hard day at work, anything that will make it easier for them to attend, they know they can park that car park that's just around the corner, and it's a short walk, and it's easy to get back onto the road network and get home. It just facilitates people attending. Leeds is an excellent place for employment opportunities. That has two effects. Obviously, the idea of getting employment, but also that gives you the hosting opportunities. We have used both Alex's organisation, FDM, my organisation, NHS Digital, but a full plethora of people, Deloitte, KPMG, legal aspects, and our next meeting is going to be at Evershed Sutherland, Leeds City Council, the Royal British Legion, Leeds UOTC, the Medical Protection Society, and Officers Association as well. So having that, again, centre of mass where you can talk to individuals who are more than happy to provide you free of charge. And I do emphasise that, because we haven't got any money, and other than Alex and I putting our hands in our own pockets to finance the refreshments for the first few events, we have paid nout, which in true Yorkshire fashion is ideal as far as we're concerned. It's I would be happy to pay to keep this going, but the fact that we can rely on businesses to do this for us is tremendous. And they do it because there's something in it for them, because we provide them with access to quality people as well. So that centre of mass in the Leeds area is excellent. Alex, do you want to add anything to that before we move on to the next slide?
I think a lot of it is to reiterate that, and obviously we haven't sort of got a call out from the guys that are listening into this of where in the country they're looking to set things up. But yes, absolutely vital road and rail connections. Almost the detail of calling out where the nearest car park is really works. And then the other thing that John was calling out is the hardcore and the reattenders, because actually your usefulness as a group, it's great to get along a load of guys that 6 to 12 months through the leaving process, but actually what you really are after is a guys a couple of years down the line, maybe guys about 5 years down the line, and something we haven't quite accessed is people right down the end of the line, sort of 10 years plus, because they're sort of provide that sort of role model, if you want, for where to go, but also that actually the incentive for people to start coming back, and really a networking group. They are sort of require a lot of love and care to get going, but they're only really as good as that sort of hardcore that can then suck people in and get that full plethora of people available. And the advice for everybody listening in is you just keep on plugging away with this and you will get there. Just so we'd say, stick to those sort of core principles, especially around location, because you don't get the people to turn up in the first place. You don't really get off the ground at all.
Yeah, thanks for that, Alex. And just to touch on the aspiration to grow further eventually, maybe you could expand. You touched on the fact that kind of Leeds based at the moment in Yorkshire, but ambitions to go beyond that. Can you talk that through a little bit?
I'll start on this one. I mean, we called it Two Roses for the reason that we wanted it to be in the north, and we wanted it to be Yorkshire and Lancashire. Just the geography, and the fact that either Alex started off working in Leeds while I was in Nottingham, and then I've then come and worked in Leeds, so it makes it easy to do it in Leeds. And it goes back to what I'm saying, in the fact that at the end of the day, the idea of travelling over to Manchester on a regular basis, well, not regular basis, but just once a quarter, we have the aspiration to do that, but then wonderfully Onward have taken up the mantle, the office's northwest resettlement and development. Is that? Well, yeah. So they've filled that void, and we would like to try and work with them to develop that gap that we've got there. And then there are, I'm going to the next slide really, but those networks.
Let's move. Yeah, I think it is. It reinforces that location is key, isn't it? It just drives that. So maybe when we'll look at networking for the network here, John, if you'd like to talk this one through.
Let me just switch mute off. Networking for the network, and you might think this is a bit of hard work, but actually it gives you a bit of extra access as a co-founder. So you need to go off and get a mix of people turning up, and they've all got to have a common theme. So the common theme naturally there is helping ex-forces people. So it's almost making sure you've got someone who's turning up from the legal profession, someone that's turning up from the public sector, someone who's turning up, say, from straight up commerce, and someone who's started up their own business. And you start to get this core. The other thing that then flows through to is telling people that you're there to start sharing jobs and opportunities. So you've got to get out there, and often, last year we were advertising a charity just who's looking for people to give out their own time to spend sort of 3 months a year, basically mentoring projects through to raise money for effectively what was a free charity consultancy. So again, great opportunity for a service leaver or someone close to service leaving, because you could go out there, you could get stuck in with a charity, and you can have the opportunity to work with actually other people who are quite seriously involved in industry, not even from a forces background. But again, this is a way of getting that opportunity out there and telling people about it, and also it's just a demonstration of how sort of networking with one person who then led to a RAF regiment leaver who's setting up his own charity, who he himself then came in touch with this other charity. And then the other bit, again, which is on the second, but as the founder runner, it actually gives you an opportunity to navigate some other businesses. So you may not immediately identify, say, with working with the public sector, but by saying that you're looking and working to find more people through your networking group, you actually get a better understanding of what those organisations do. And equally sort of helps you unlock doors through as well, because, for instance, you start working with a public sector body, say your local council, you then get talking to them and actually end up talking to one of their suppliers because they've outsourced services, or perhaps it's an auditor over at the local Big Four office, say PricewaterhouseCoopers, And again, it just gives you that through connection where potentially you get that opportunity to identify a double opportunity. One, in that your local council's trying to build its ex-forces links in terms of engagement and getting people to go and support the military covenant. But also, again, getting that opportunity to get through the door of one of the big four and perhaps meet an ex-military person that you've not picked up on before, who's actually willing to help out on that side. Because obviously, many service leavers are interested in going working for the big four. The flip side is one of the least explored avenues of people working for local authorities, which ironically, I think, certainly service leavers and finished officers is actually a really good opportunity because ironically it provides some very, very similar crossovers in terms of benefits and style of work with the military in some respects. So I think getting out there and networking is massively important. It is that piece about where the location is. So networking in Leeds works really well, but as we talked about, there will be a completely different network altogether for Manchester, and there's actually a very short difference between. We've not got overly stuck into places like Keighley or say going up towards Darlington, but equally again, if you wanted to set up a network in those sorts of areas, although relatively close to Leeds, I bet you would certainly still get some headway and ground running as you sort of dug into what was going on. John, you got anything to add to that?
Alex. Yeah. John, any more on that one, please?
No.
Networking to benefit the network, but also there's added benefits for yourself as well, and also how to build into that network. I think lends itself well to the next slide of just some considerations from the stakeholders out there that can support and actually be built into networks as well. So if you just take us through this, that'd be very useful in your own experience with stakeholders.
I think obviously it's important. You've got to do your homework as to what your stakeholder engagement is going to be, and it will continue to evolve as your network group develops. But you've got to start from somewhere, and obviously a good start for 10 is the OA. Who do they know in that area that you could approach to see if they're interested, and get the likes of Pete to assist you with that. But you've got the Regular Forces Employment Association, and Dave Hilton in Leeds helped us a lot to start with. And the reason I put that up there is because although this is the Officers Association, and predominantly, I would think that most people looking at this WebEx will be officers. Please don't underestimate what the soldiers have got to offer, because the number of them that have done fantastically well setting up their own businesses, they are equally as proficient at doing this, in some cases better, because they've just got, they're more streetwise than we are when they leave. And I know a lad who's left as a PTI, and he has set up multiple businesses, and he's done very well for himself. So just be mindful of not to make it exclusively an officer's set, because you tend to have a situation where the lads will turn up. They may attend once or twice, but if they don't feel that this is their bag, they won't come back. So I just put that out there in that respect. Regimental headquarters, obviously myself and Alex are Yorks or Yorks derivatives, and they've been supported, offering location, but offering to spread the word as well. If you haven't had exposure to your local regional brigade HQ, this is their bread and butter. They are the regional foot on the ground. They are the aircraft carrier for that region. If you haven't, you must get into that organisation and tap up who the engagement people are, because their network and the Cadets Association will also, know vast numbers of employers. You really are missing a trick if you do not engage with your regional brigade headquarters. There is the other networks that we are aware of, although we've not, we know people in the North East Officers Network, but I don't know people in those other groups yet. But we need to do better to, reach out to them and hopefully we can have symbiotic relationships. And then identify who your employers are, because ultimately that's why people are looking to come to this network to look for employment via a network. So who are the people that are looking for the people with a skill set that the military bring, and get them on board, and build it up from there. Anything more from yourself, Alex?
I suppose for me, the one thing which John and I probably haven't really got massively off the ground yet is doing the business-to-business piece, and those groups are just as important in that. But this idea that actually, if you're going to use a solicitor because you need a bit of corporate tax sorting out, rather than going to anybody, you end up going to somebody with a military background, because you know what their mentality is, and they got that commonly shared sort of thing. And I think that's something, probably as a group matures a bit more so, is actually that attraction. I certainly see it in some of the London groups I've visited, where actually people are talking more so as businesses and suppliers between each other, which actually becomes another draw for going to the group, because actually you can do a proper bit of business development, and it's less so about I'm looking for a job and more so about can we do business, which I think is a lot easier and more natural again for people to talk about. And equally, when you're looking for people to assist in hosting, actually, if there is somebody out there wanting to sell their corporate product, it does make it easier for them to be able to put on drinks and other things to make it to sort of enhance the experience of the evening. There's almost like the basic version of it is has always been John and I having to buy the drinks in, but when we work with some guys that have got a bit of a marketing budget to throw the direction of the evening, often we've had tea, coffee, food, and beer, which has been very positive.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, excellent. I'm thinking about the evening itself and more into the practicalities. Maybe you could just talk through the kind of the routine and what an evening at the Two Roses looks like.
Well, this starts with Alex about 2 months out. He starts emailing the distribution list on a weekly basis to remind everybody where it's going to be and the timings, etc., and directions and maps. Then on the night, Alex and myself normally there for about 1800, wherever we're going to be. That's always because to just double check that the location hasn't shifted. Sometimes if it's in a hotel, we may have been moved rooms, and so you know exactly where it's going to be. And invariably, some people will turn up early, just to the nature of either they had a clear run or the train that they got was just they had to get an earlier one. So it's always nice to make sure that if you can have somebody on the ground for when those early birds arrive. 1830 to 1900, it's introducing people as they come through. If you've got new people, saying hi and just starting that network is the full cocktail mode. And normally, you know, Yorkshire Regiment were absolutely awful at that type of thing. So it's not something that we are good at. So it's sometimes if you've got young officers leaving, it's educating them of exactly what networking is and just being clear about what it is that they're trying to achieve. 1900, call everybody to order and either move into a separate room or just get people to switch their attention to what they're there for. I normally give a run through of the Potter history of the organisation and emphasise to people, if we haven't got any presentations to be done for the evening where either the host or other individuals are going to do a presentation, to make sure that people are quite clear what it is that they want from the meeting. And I really, every time I do this, I really try and emphasize it strongly. If you don't know what you're looking for from the organization, from the network, how do you expect anybody to help you? Standing up and say, hi, I'm John, I'm looking for a job, doesn't help people when they go out and are looking around their own network. Whereas if you can say, hi, I'm John, I'm looking for any opportunities in project management, either in the Sheffield or the Leeds area, when they're out doing their thing and they hear about opportunities, they can go, John Mayo, he's looking for something like this. I'll put this his way. So be it a business to business or be it looking for a job in a certain area, it's emphasizing to people to be quite clear about what it is that they want or what it is they are offering, be it in the way of opportunities of employment or just advice and guidance that they can offer to the group. It's being clear about that. And once everybody has done their bit, I normally sort of hand over to Alex to sort of summarize and look forward and emphasize where we're going to be moving to for the social afterwards. A bit of networking continuing before going onto the pub, and that delay in the decamp, as I say, there will be people that have got to go for either trains or just because they'll have reasons why they can't go to the pub, and it gives them the opportunity to maybe grab either a quick exchange of business cards or grab a phone number from somebody that they heard give a pitch that they're interested in, either to offer opportunity to, can I have a cup of coffee with you at the time of your convenience to hear a bit more about what you do in that line of work. And then they might have to grab their kit and go for the train or just jump for the car. Other than that, it's move off to the pub. In the evening, we will endeavour to try and get somebody to volunteer to host for the next meeting, and if people are aware that that's what we're looking for, then we always have a backup plan somewhere if no one is forthcoming. We now have our network, so we know who to turn to as if no one else wants to step forward and take the opportunity. So we use that meeting to furnish the location for the next meeting. Christmas drinks is different in the fact that we're just there. There's no formal part of it, but we normally try and pick a place that's quiet, mainly because I'm pretty hard of hearing, and therefore loud centre sort of city pubs are no good for me, because I stand there and nod sagely, not being able to hear anything. But it's a general stream of people coming in and going, maybe just popping in for a quick drink to say Merry Christmas and hi, or it's just a slightly different social setup for the Christmas event, but it still doesn't stop people networking or having the opportunity to meet new people. And that is how the evening regularly goes.
Oh, that's great. Thanks very much for that, John. Okay, so we're just passing 7 o'clock there, so we'll move on to some of your questions. So we've got a few questions in the bag here, but if any of anyone listening in would like to share some more questions, we will ask the guys and get their thoughts very much on the kind of practical aspects. So if I work through a few of the ones that we've got here, I think probably a key one, touched on it a little bit, of kind of engaging with stakeholders and making them aware, but how do you find is the best way to actually recruit service leaders in particular into the group? I think you've got close to 300 members now. How have you managed to recruit members of the group?
I think, first off, we've been quite strict about who we let on right from the beginning, because we're using tools like LinkedIn to get our names out there. It's been quite sort of strict over making sure we actually knew who these people were, or actually had some form of interaction, because we didn't want to be one of those LinkedIn groups with thousands of people, but nothing actually went on. So a lot of it actually has been through word of mouth, working with the Officers Association, working with other areas, and it's still surprising me the number of places where people crop up asking about Two Roses. So I think word of mouth is very powerful. Each of the individual meetings, again, is a really good opportunity to keep on getting the message out there and encourage people to forward and share our email and get in touch. John, have you got some views?
Yeah. I would say the regional brigades. They have individuals, SO2 transition, whose role it is to keep people, the units aware of what's going on the resettlement side, and so you build that relationship with them. When they're going around, they make the units in your area. The fact that we have Catterick sat on our, just up the road from us helps, and the RHQ individuals, and say just through CTP as well, through Career Transition Partnership. I worked that area as well while I was with the regional brigades. I think sometimes we underestimate how many people we actually know ourselves, and you've just got to have the energy to get the ball rolling. It's building the momentum to get that stone from a standing start to move down the hill. It will gather momentum quite quickly, but unless you can, break into new areas, if you say, I can't emphasize enough the regional brigades, because they will have the links into the units that are in your area. The reserves, don't underestimate the reserves. Both myself and Alex have been or are with the reserve forces, and they again, people leaving the services are encouraged to join the reserves, so they may join the reserves and through that hear about us and come on in from there.
That's a very good point, John, actually. Yeah, because the last Onward meeting over in Manchester, for example, 6MI was invited to come along for that, and really added a lot to that. Not only because reservists come with their own networks as well. So I totally agree with you on that one. Just thinking about members, sorry, John, to leap on that one, but I think you made a very eloquent point about other ranks getting involved in that and what they can actually bring to it. But another question I have here is, what about non-military members of the group? And I say this from a non-military perspective myself, but do you allow non-military members into the group itself, or is it purely for ex-service men and women?
I don't suppose that if you're after a quick and dirty answer, I would say, what have they got to offer? What are they bringing to the party? What we don't know is what their skill set is. We have had situations, or I have had situations where people have been introduced to me looking for assistance who don't have military backgrounds. The disadvantage is the fact that depending on how many people are in that link of a network, I'm not able to understand all the time what skill set they have. Our background is military. We understand the military. We have those core values that most of us adhere to, and therefore, when you get a certain person, you basically know what the round peg is, and therefore you can facilitate fitting it into a round hole. If they're not military, you're a bit blind as to how you're going to assist them. You don't know what they're bringing to the party. But I would never turn anybody away, but I wouldn't want to open the floodgates. We have a unique selling point, and it's because and I think we wouldn't want to dilute that too much.
Yeah, I understand, and I guess it comes back to that vision aspect right at the beginning. Is it, Alex? Is there anything else you'd like to add in on that one?
I'm absolutely with John on that. The only one bit is just to make clear is if somebody like in our next two raises meeting comes along and they've got a specific skill set, then they can offer the group, such as they are, say, an HR recruiter who is working for a particular organisation and they want to actively go out and get ex-forces, of course, get them along. We've got a chap coming along to our next meeting who is from the Business Enterprise Fund, which is a government-sponsored company that's about providing funding to small business startups. This is something that can directly benefit the group members, but it's not as if we're going to say, oh, well, you're a member of Two Roses now. No, thanks so much for coming along. This is guys' contact. We know where you are in the future, but actually the group is made up of ex-service people.
Thanks, Alex. Yeah, good point. Another question here I've got. How many people do you normally get along for your meetings, or what's a good number to get along for the meeting to work well?
We've had as few as 4, and we've had up to 25. At Christmas, funny enough, it's a lot more. But there hasn't been one event where we haven't helped somebody in some form, and I'm pretty proud of that. You know, when we had the 4 people, the one individual who got all this assistance, it must have been all his holidays that come at once, because he had 3 people who just happened to be able to give him loads of advice and contacts, and he went away very happy. But it's normally sort of like 15 to 20. But I would say, you know, it is growing, and you have that mix of the same faces, and you have a continued throughput. Some people will turn up once and you'll never see them again. Other people will turn up, you don't see them for the rest of the year, but they'll come back for Christmas. It all depends on, you know, when it's convenient for them to attend and what it is that they're looking for from the group.
Actually, that leads nicely to one other question here, and maybe I'll have 2 more questions if that's okay, guys. For those, for example, service leavers, it's understandable why they would want to come along to the event, and for others, it's a little bit of helping those guys out. But how do you retain those who they've secured a role, a second career, and they're going from that? How do you retain those who've left quite a while ago, but keep coming back to the group?
Well, again, I think that ties in with my reasons for doing this, in the fact that it's just in our DNA. We want to help people. You know, we know that it's, you know, for every person that walks out into a very well-paid job, there is a whole load of people that transition is difficult. And the longer you are in the organisation, the harder it is. And if you're in the process of leaving, do not underestimate. At some point in your transition, you will have a smack in the face moment when you realise you're now a civilian, and it hits everybody. And some people, it's just a moment while you're shaving in the morning, and at other people, it's an absolute meltdown. And so helping those individuals just, you know, makes you feel good. You know, if you can assist people in that first, or it's not so that first step. Sometimes it's they've left, they've got something else, and this guy who's just started working where I am, he left. He scratched that itch that he'd always wanted to do, and then he thought he'd walk into a job, and 6 months later he still didn't have a job, and it was looking a bit grim. But he came along to Two Roses, clearly had a tremendous amount to offer, but wasn't getting the breaks, and we managed to sort him out. And that sort of like just sense of well-being that it gives you. And I'll do my other sort of like soul-bearing aspects when it comes to transition. I found, and I think quite a few other people have found, when you transition, those individuals that you automatically assume are going to help you, you end up being disappointed by, and they let you down. And those people that you would never in a million years think would do anything for you, bend over backwards. And the number of times that people have said to me, "Thank you ever so much," I say, "That's okay." And they say, "How can we?" Not so, "How can we ever repay you?" But you know, it's like, "What can we do to pay you back?" I says, "Just do the same for other people." And if you know, we are part of an organisation that supposedly looks after our own, well, let's keep that continuing going.
Yeah, agreed. And Alex, actually, another aspect about keeping the people engaged, I think you touched on it earlier, that the business to business element of actually, you know, shared background and all that good stuff, but, you know, shared best practice and all that good things between different sectors, different roles, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, go on, Max.
No, I was about to say, in terms of engaging people, it's getting along, and as John talks about, sort of demonstrating the value in it. And there's actually, I've got a question up on screen which has been asked by one of the guys. Peter, am I allowed to answer it? Because I could probably weave the two in together.
Yeah, go on. Yeah. If we can just read that one out about the, please go ahead.
So it's about to say, it's Paul Harris writes, can I get a feel of the mix of Army, RAF and Navy members of each of the networks represented today in the rank ranges? Do we have ex-serving executive support in the networking and influential industry roles? I think that's a really interesting question. Now, the first half of the question is quite easy. I mean, broadly speaking, we probably at times end up with a third. Other times it goes a bit green heavy. Sometimes you get a bit more blue in, and sometimes you get the dark blue of the navy coming in. So having the perfect setup never really comes there. And same with the rank ranges. Yet we've had ex-lance corporals all the way through to. Have we had a brigadier in yet? I'm not quite sure.
We've got a brigadier on the books, but he could never make it.
So, and that's sort of the slightly telling thing is what John talks about, this piece about, you'd be surprised who bends over backwards. And it's that whole thing about, the high-powered executive who's ex-military, and I know of a few, they're incredibly busy people, and sometimes you might get the access to them. But the reality is actually probably the best guys in the network is everybody in the middle. Because, like the SO2 network within the military or the SO1, actually those are the guys who are doing the doing and know where the real opportunities are. No, it is great if you know an MD or somebody as a non-exec on the board because they can fire in the killer email to get it going. But ultimately, it's going to be a middle manager that does the running. So, going back to John's point, it's about finding these people who are willing to give a bit of time and get committed because, ultimately everybody in their organisation is working with HR, is working with finance, or knows somebody that knows somebody. Or the other flip side, going back to business, especially at the smaller end of it, you may bump into somebody who's running a small consultancy or got a small, say, T-shirt printing business or embroidery business. Next thing you know, you're trying to organise some corporate event, you need a training consultant in, and you actually know somebody, and you can give them, not necessarily a free pass at it, but at least you can get them in on the tendering list. Likewise, you need a quick run of T-shirts because you're going to do your corporate away day, which is, say, litter picking at a local nature reserve, and your boss signs off a couple of £100 to get some T-shirts sorted and other stuff. You know somebody who you can ring up and say, hey, could you give us a hand? And again, it's helping out that bit of the network and using those connections to going. So, executive support in the network in influential industry roles, we've probably not got many. But I probably would describe myself as working in a fairly middle-ranking role at Drax. But actually, if I really, really needed to, I could reach out to the chief exec there, and equally through FDM. Actually, we've got contacts with the head of the Ex-Forces program that is actually the deputy MD of the business. So again, we can reach there if we need to. But day to day, they probably can't help us as much as they can just the good old motivated guy and girl who's ex-forces and wants to help others.
I think I would add to that. Within the LinkedIn network, we have people that may not come along to the events, but if we know, and this is why I go back to being clear about what it is that you want. We have people in who are big in the financial world. And if you say, I am looking for opportunities in the finance world, then we can introduce you to that individual for a cup of coffee. And although they can't make it to the event, they're more than happy to give you the benefit of their advice and experience. So again, it's that network and being clear about who it is or what it is that you want, and then you can make that introduction. But I would just put a word of advice. Once you've built your network, you need to be mindful about who you pass on people to, because if you pass on, shall we say, an individual who can be a bit of a pain in the backside, you will potentially burn your network. And so therefore, you need to take the time to vet that individual yourself. So it's just like, oh yeah, you know, I've spent 5 minutes talking to this guy. Will you have a coffee with him and give him the benefit of your advice? If that guy turns out to be not who you thought it was, then the next time you phone up that contact with a definite, genuine guy, he may not be, or she may not be, so inclined to say, yes, I'll give him, you know, half an hour and a cup of coffee, because the last time the person you sent me to, it was just the wrong side of the moon. So I'm not going to do that. So please just bear that in mind.
Yeah, no, very useful advice there. Thanks, John. We're drawing to an end now. So thanks very much for those questions, and thanks for answering them, guys. And if I'll just move on to the final slide there. So standard ones for the OA there, but also you can see here 2 rows is thinking about recruiting using all these different channels here. So 2 rows is at live.co.uk is the email address for the guys. The active Twitter account and that LinkedIn group there as well. So those are the details there. So to finish that off, I'd just like to take a moment for the guys who volunteered their time this evening to talk through networking and how to set up a military network. Thank you very much, Alex and John. Really appreciate you talking that through. As I said, this is something that will be recorded and shared as a resource for anyone who wants to set up this, use this, setting up their own military network in the future. And of course, the guys are part of the greater network as well, so people to lean on as well. So thanks very much for that. With no further ado, I'll let you go and enjoy the rest of your evening. So thank you very much indeed. Cheers, guys.
Thanks, Ben. Bye.
Bye.
Cheers.